Good evening, everyone. 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order for the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is to approve the agenda. I need to add resignations and license contracts to the consent agenda. So that would be C. And with that addition, is a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Eric. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Lisa? I'm not sure if she's there. Lisa, are you there?
Aye.
Okay, all right. All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, staff and student highlights.
Well, I'm Kristen Kelly-Jerry, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the principal at Poultney Elementary School, and thank you for having us here tonight. And I would like to introduce our librarian, Stacy Allen. She's going to talk a little bit about the year of the books.
Thank you for having me. So this year, Poultney Elementary is one of, I believe, 13 schools that is celebrating the Year of the Book, compliments of the Cliff Foundation, the Children's Literacy Foundation. These are schools in Vermont and New Hampshire. This has brought to our school, I don't know if we can click forward.
Yes, just let me know when you want me to do it.
Click forward. Thank you. Oh, hey, I didn't know it did that. That's fun. It doesn't do that on my screen. So the grant brought to the school $25,000 worth of literacy-related events, activities, and materials. We have 4 author visits scheduled over the year. Each student gets to bring home 9 brand new books. So we've been doing it kind of a monthly giveaway, usually before vacations, so they have something to read. Brought $1,000 of books to the library, books to our public library, classrooms got some new books. In general, I think we're gonna skip ahead. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Do you want?
Its goal is to create a culture of literacy throughout the school. Okay, we're gonna go ahead a little more, thank you. As it says, strengthens our relationship between the school, public library. It involves the parents as well. We can skip ahead. Our first event was October 9th. We had the poet Ted Hsu come and speak to the whole school in different groups. He is a very entertaining poet. He even went into the pre-K room and did some poetry with them. Each student, again, got to take home a free book. We can move ahead to the next slide. We had illustrator John Stephen Gurney come in January. It was supposed to be December, but weather just was not working for us. So again, it was a whole school event. He worked with each of the class, a couple grades at a time, did some drawing for them, heard great reviews from teachers and the kids. Again, they got a new free book. We can go ahead. In 2 weeks, or after spring break, we will be having Natalie Kinsey Warnock, who's another Vermont author, come and spend a week at our school. She will be doing history projects with all the grades. It'll be tailored, of course, to the grade levels. But she'll be working with each grade level between 3 and 5 times throughout the week. Another free book will be involved with this one. You can go ahead. On June 5th, we are going to have our family event. Poet Rajni Edens will be coming down. Cliff gives us a stipend for food, so we'll be offering bagels, donuts, and coffee to the parents. He will speak to the parents beforehand on literacy tips for at home, how to read with their children to make it a little more interesting, or to just give them more ways to tell stories. Another free book, and that one is cool because it's not just for our students, it's any children that the parents have at home as well. They'll be able to get books, anyone under 18. The Poultney Library will be there doing a card drive. PTO will be involved. We can go forward. One of the things with the grant was if we had 80% of our students fill in with their parents a reading promise, well, no, not really a promise, a contract saying they'd try and read twice a week, we would get extra money for another celebration at the end of the year. We made it with 85% of our students. So we will have an author who has not yet been decided and some money to celebrate with ice cream or pizza or something, and a free book. You can go ahead. So, okay. It also involved a mini grant stipend. So we were given, I believe, the chance to use $2,000 for literacy related things. We applied for these throughout the school. We had $600 go to the Book Nook to help fund new books. For one of our counselors, we were able to get money to do an SEL library in her office. The library, we got $300 to help fund extra pre-K materials for a pre-K curriculum, including board books, felt board, and felt story characters. STEM program, $200 makerspace materials and books. And the 4th grade actually got $650 to go on a field trip to Paramount for a Raptor program. And then they went to Wonder Feet afterwards and learned about electricity. Okay, we can go forward. So this was the 4th grade field trip. And the posters they did after. We can go forward. Our students made a bunch of thank you notes to Cliff and one of our last authors, John Stephen Gurney. We sent them along. Heard back to John from John. He absolutely loved the notes they did. Go forward. Again, this is just some of the benefit it's brought to our school. It's been a huge, wonderful experience for all the students, for the teachers, I think for myself in the library. And it also comes with another $2,500 follow-up grant next year.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so, and last one I think is just more pictures. So that is the year of the book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you because you put a lot of hard work into getting it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone have any questions?
Did you have a committee that worked with you on the grant writing? That must have been quite
I
a job.
did most of it myself. I had some people who had to fill out letters as well.
Well, that's fabulous. It's such a benefit for all of you.
Thank you.
The mini grants, is that on top of the 25,000?
I think that's factored into it, yeah.
Still good. Okay. Thank you very much.
To you.
Okay.
All right, on to general public comment. Anyone online wish to speak tonight? Okay. General or consent agenda, so we have the minutes and warrant 485 plus the resignations and license contracts. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Eric. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Colin, are you there?
Aye.
Okay. That's unanimous. Okay. On to Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Eric. I did place a lot of information in the reports. A lot of this was around the redistricting update, the legislative session. I'm not going to go through all of this. I think we all understand that this does change on a day-to-day basis in terms of where we're at. But I think as we look at the Act 73, there are two major proposals, one being the House and the other being the Senate, and they are markedly different. And I know that in the House, it really is now starting to center around less around maps and regions, more around what used to be BOCES, but now are the cooperative education services model. And so that is currently in the House Ways and Means Committee being discussed. We believe that there will be a vote at the end of this week on that. It's just something for us to keep an eye on and what that may potentially mean for us. There's a lot in there, particularly around pre-K and what the implementation of foundation formula, as well as the timeline. The Senate proposal is a little bit different, where there is still a map in play, and I think the big difference really is around the timeline that this Senate proposal, the new supervisory unions would take place July 1, 2027, which is a year from now. So obviously there are some concerns just about the transition, what they may look like. But so we'll see where they're at. Both. I'm sure there are a lot of concessions that have to be made, a lot of adjustments to be made in both plans through discussion. But these are just items for us to be aware about. We can talk in local boards about what this may mean for us locally. What our discussion should be, but from an SU standpoint, just something for us to be aware of. I did also put some things in here about the yield bill and the spending cap bill, which I don't know, Lewis, is there anything you want to say on either of those? But I think we're in good position with
Yep.
those. But
The yield that was presented would lower any tax rates that we presented at town meeting by approximately 5%. That was based on the 2-year yield plan.
And with spending cap, there really are no concerns with regard to our local boards around spending caps. I think our boards have always done a really nice job of being fiscally conservative, while still making sure all of our students and our staff have the resources and everything that they need to do their jobs and to improve student learning. I also placed, as per request, just a governance structures model. This is something that I shared with the boards last year. Did update it just a little bit, and it is not to be swaying one way or another. It's supposed to be just an overlook of just what a supervisory union is and what a supervisory district is. I know that was a question the boards had asked if we place this back in the board report just for review. And then we also have included, Sarah Taylor provided the local wellness policy committee updates. That was requested last board meeting, so if there are any questions, Sarah, who unfortunately could not be here tonight or join us online, but she said that she'd be more than happy to, if you send her an email, she'll ask any questions you may have about this. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about any of this or what's going on. So I know that, we are doing the VTCAP assessment right now, but Lisa, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, so I don't want to talk too much about assessments and what's going on right now.
Any questions? Okay. All right, yeah, and I see the local wellness that I asked about last month in there, and that pretty much answers all my questions about it, so. Okay, we'll move on to Assistant Superintendent's report. And,
I'm sorry in advance for this, whatever this is. We just met a little over 2.5 weeks ago, so there's not a tremendous amount new since that last meeting. But we did get a final confirmation from the Agency of Education that the continuous improvement plan templates for schools are not going to be changing for the upcoming year. So that's always nice for schools to have the ability to go through the process without also having to change all the documents and forms as well. So we'll be working to support schools one-on-one as needed, and whatever they need to go through the data assessment process and to develop their continuous improvement plans, and get the process completed for them, and for us as well. And there was one other piece related to that. So I did link into my report just a SIP update. It had been on our work plan originally. To have that at this time, it's linked into my assistant superintendent's report. And it really just highlights kind of the activities that go along with implementing the goals and strategies in the school SIPs and in the SU level work that supports those. There's a copy of all of the school continuous improvement plans linked in there. Those are also available on their websites and in many other places in school documents, but I put them all in one place just for your convenience. And it just sort of talks through, you know, our process of developing it and the kinds of work that we've been doing in terms of data analysis, coordinated professional development activities, and curriculum development that are related to SIP-specific goal areas. All of that comes across to you in our reports and in the strategic plan reports, because all of those activities are aligned. So all things that you have heard or will hear from Chris, myself, or our strategic plan activities. So a lot of old news, but things that we like to highlight and connect together for you in that area. I can't remember where we were in this process the last time that we met, but we are recommending an ELL teacher, and really excited to be able to move forward with that process at the supervisory union level. That staffing position has been open for a long time, and it's quite a relief to get to a place where we have found a qualified licensed candidate who can support us in that work. So I don't know exactly where that is in the process, but we're really excited. And those were kind of the big pieces since a couple weeks ago. If anybody had any questions about anything.
Any questions on the report or the? No, I just have more of a comment, you know, just between the CIP update and it's hyperlinked in your report. Well, maybe a question. So when annually, or not annually, but like usually midway through the school year is when, like the winter, you do, all the schools will do like their, I guess, like assessment.
The mid-year FastBridge,
yeah.
Yep.
For the CIPs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question is just looking at this report here, every year, all of these is what you use to go through and for all the CIPs and all the schools?
Well, last year was the first year with that template, because we know they love to change it. But yes, in general, yes. I mean, we're always looking at data, and so every time that we have an assessment timeline of any kind, we do. FastBridge is a screener that we do 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. Our VTCAP data, schools get access to that. Usually, traditionally, it's been at the end of the summer, although we're hoping that timeline will move up in the future based on the AOE's efforts in that area. And so schools will look at that data when that comes out, and then if there are other common assessments that we're using or curriculum-based measures that we're using for assessment, they'll look at that as, you know, when the data is available. Our EST team structure that's in every building, which is the educational support teams for students, they have regular data meetings. And so after the big benchmark screeners, each school EST team will meet with the teachers and will go through their data and help support the teacher's analysis of the data for their class and set some intervention goals, things for the teacher to work on, and also things that individual students or small groups need to work on with the interventionist. And so they'll go through that together as a team. But they also, the EST team will also meet on their own and do some of those other data points as well. Really every 4 to 6 weeks or so, those teams are looking at some type of data or another and tracking progress toward goals for students and the strategies that they're trying to implement, and whether or not they're having the impact that they wanted to see. So that's kind of the data driving team in each building. They're looking at data, they're analyzing data, they're reviewing data, and they're also working with the principal on building-based faculty meeting agendas or trainings or things in response to the school-wide data aligned with their continuous improvement plan.
Okay. And so, obviously, or I assume, all these CIPs are usually started when you go through this process about the same time for all the schools, or is it staggered throughout the year?
Well, ideally, we would have the template a little earlier in the year. Although I feel like the last couple of years, this timing has kind of been what's happened. It's the spring is when you want to do it. They're due by June 30th. Sorry, our CFP is due by June 30th. The SIPs are officially due by September 30th, but we always want to have them done before the end of the school year, before people take off for the summer, so that you have your team and your stakeholders and all the people that we want involved in the SIP process, and you have access to them. And that really only happens during the school year. And it's really helpful to schools, to principals, to teachers, to everyone, to have those goals defined in the spring, because it lets them line up all of their planning for next year in alignment with those goals. So principals will start with the SIP goals that they've set with their teams in the spring, and that's what they'll build their professional development calendar for their building out of, their faculty meeting calendar, with the team meetings that they're gonna have in their schools, the half-day PD days that we have, they'll start planning those agendas in alignment with those SIP goals and trying to make sure that what they're planning for next year is going to help them accomplish what they set out to do. And we work with the principals on that. They tie that into their individual goals that they have professionally for themselves, that Chris and I meet with them about, and any other, like if there's impacts that something that they need means that we need to support them in some way, then we'll get all of that on the calendar for district level in-service days or for SU initiative faculty meeting days, where we might go in and support some of the training or some of the work that they're doing. So it's really helpful to have them done in the spring, drafted and ready. Not that things don't change, but we know in the spring what we need to do next year, and it's a really good time to set those goals and reflect and then make the plans to make them happen.
What are they, how are they basing on changing the templates year to year? I mean, doesn't that skew?
I would love to know the answer to that question, but.
Just there's nothing like consistency.
Yeah, I think it's based on federal guidance. And so, as usual, there's sort of that trickle-down effect that the feds might change a requirement or something that they want to see documented or reported on in a certain way. And then the agency responds by changing their templates and their tools, and then we respond in kind. So I'm assuming that that's sort of how that works, federal accountability guidelines under the Every Student Succeeds Act would be what guides that. And then sometimes there also could be changes in federal grant requirements, because the continuous improvement plan is a joint continuous improvement plan and school-wide plan. And the school-wide plan requirements come from the federal grant guidance on things that are required for schools that receive federal funding. And so sometimes if there's changes to those, then the template could also change, because we have one plan for school.
Because you have to meet those requirements.
Not two, because we have to meet those requirements. So that's kind of how that works.
That explains that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I like how all of them, this is all the CIPs are in one place in this too.
I thought that would be easy for people to take a look at.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a separate presentation for FastBridge and VTCAP?
Yes, and I was just looking in the board folder, and I'm not seeing those in there, which is weird, because I think they went out last week, but, and share. You don't have them in there from Christine, do you, Chris?
Do I have them where, sir?
The data presentation links? I don't see them in the board. Yeah. Do that. I apologize, I don't know what happened and why they're not in there. But yes.
I'll drop that in then.
We have the FastBridge data presentation and the VTCAP data presentation. We can start with whichever. I think that's FastBridge,
Yep.
which is fine. Let me just make sure I have it up on my screen. So for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you've seen these reports before. It's the same format for this information that you see for all your local district reports, which should be happening or have happened within the next couple weeks. You'll get the winter data for your local districts as well. So we just provide sort of some general information about the FastBridge screeners here, how they're formatted, computer adaptive, curriculum-based measures, and we give them kindergarten through grade 9 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and spring. And then the next slide just has an overview of the benchmarks and norms and how growth is measured within the assessment. So you can just see how the metrics are in the background of the test. I know sometimes people like to look at that and what it is that, and also what the content of the test is. So like what are students doing in each of those measures at each of those grade levels. And then we have our literacy data, and the different grade levels have different assessments based on the age of the students who are participating. So our K and 1 students take early reading, and that is in alignment with the Read Vermont legislation and Act 139 and the work that we're doing with early literacy for our students. We're able to generate all of the information that we need for Act 139 compliance reporting and work based on the data from that assessment. And then grades 2 and 3 have 2 different assessments. They have the CBM reading and the A reading, and grades 4 through 12 have auto reading and A reading. And so those are the measurements that are used for them. And then the next slide starts to break down the data, and this is by assessment. And so this slide is the early reading slide, K1, for literacy, and the sort of very 30,000-foot view is in that first set of bars on the left-hand side. We want to see the bars going from shorter to higher as we go from left to right, and that will tell us that we're making growth and that we have students sort of moving to the right, because our goal is to have the most students in low risk or advanced, and so that's the light purple and the really, really light purple. I don't know why they use 2 light purples, but they do. And so we're trying to, from fall to winter, we're trying to shift the percentage of students moving toward the right, and between the fall and the spring, we're trying to shift them in more statistically significant ways. I know I've said this before too, like if you see a variance of like a percentage that is like 2 or 3 percentage points different from one measure to another, that's not usually really statistically significant. It could just result in 1 student moving out or 2 students moving in or a couple kids, moving here or there. It's not really showing a trend or a pattern. It kind of looks like that visually, but you want to look for numbers that have like a 4, 5, 6% or more change, that really tells you that there's actually like a pattern there as opposed to just an anomaly in the data. Just because our cohorts are really small for students, we have very few students taking a specific assessment, and so the data can change a lot with just a few students, as many of you know from your school-based reports. And the next slide shows our CBM reading. And again, we're looking for more students on the right in the light purple and medium purple, and lower bars in the fall and higher bars as we go into the year. And the next one is for auto reading, and the same here. And then the following one is A reading. And I should have pointed out, but on that first chart, on the far right chart where you have just the four columns by themselves that show the fall to winter growth. Again, like we're really looking at those three right-hand bars, the pink, purple, and light purple. That's showing us that kids are making growth, and statistically significant growth, which is always what we want to see. But we do also kind of look right in the middle of those and look at, what's on the left 2 bars versus what's on the right 2 bars. And again, our goal is we want those right 2 bars to be higher, more kids than not making very, significant growth, typical or aggressive, is always our goal, because that's what helps us close achievement gaps and learning gaps for kids. And then our math data goes through a very similar format. Excuse me. Sorry. An overview of the math assessments that we give. There are just 2 different strands here. Kindergarten and first grade have early math and early math composite. And then 2nd through 9th go to A math. And so this slide is our early math. There's an awful lot of light purple on that chart, if you notice, which is very, very exciting and really promising for our youngest students to be having a strong start like that. And A math as well. On the next slide, you can see the light purple and medium purple and the movement there. And math has been an area that we've really been focused on with our curriculum work and our professional development work. And so we're tracking closely and monitoring that data and trying to see how students are responding to the work that we've been doing in that area. The next section, which is the group screening reports, we had just put these in really for your reference, as some board members in the past have said that they like to see them. But we are really focused on the growth reports. That's our superintendent's goals are focused on those. Our school goals are focused on those. We can't control where students come in, but we can control what happens once they're there. And so that's why we focus on growth as our priority thing to measure. It's our impact as a system on the students in the classrooms. These are more like the dipstick kind of results of like, just where are they? And it doesn't necessarily measure like that. It does give an overall of where they are, but it doesn't measure change in these graphs. And so not as much of a focus, but they are all there for your reference. So the same assessments, early reading on through, and a similar color scheme. Like our goal is to have more in purple and light purple and less in the pinks on all of these graphs, and to have bars that go from lower to higher, from fall to winter. And so that's always what we're shooting for. And if those things are taking place, then we know that we're on the right track.
Quick question.
Yes.
On that page 14.
Yep.
If you can go back to, was there 2 sets of, I'm sorry, 13. 2 sets of fall and winter data on the right? Am I seeing that right? What? On the left, sorry.
So So this is A math, so this is 2nd through 9th graders math on the A math assessment. And the box on the left-hand side is the scores of students by category. So for the students who start off in the fall, who are high risk, it's the darkest pink. And then we check in again in the winter, and based on their growth, the students who are at high risk are also in the dark pink, but it's fall, winter, fall, winter, fall, winter, fall, winter,
I see.
for each of the risk categories. So it tells us what percentage of students are at each risk level. And that risk means risk of not achieving grade level standards by the end of June. That's what that risk is predicting with this platform. So, and then the right-hand side is growth. So that is looking at what rate they're growing at. So are they growing, are they making kind of like flat growth? Are they making modest growth? Are they making typical grade level growth? Or are they making aggressive growth and like more than one grade level in a school year kind of growth is what's on the right-hand side.
Thanks, it's my eyes.
You can see me like on and off, on and off. This might be time for the other kind of pair. So Chris, if you would mind, slide 21, which is the analysis slide, for us. So we like to pull all that together and give you some highlights. So for us, just a couple areas of really promising growth. Early reading, 61% of the students were making typical or aggressive growth at the mid-year, which is, again, very exciting to see them on that side of the bar. In CBM reading, which gets, it's a curriculum-based measure, so it gets a lot more into like comprehension and sort of higher level skills. For grades 2 to 3, 53% of the students were in the right 2 bars. For auto reading, grades 4 through 9, that 59% were in those right-hand bars. And for A reading, grades 2 through 9, 28% of the students were considered at the advanced level. And that is always something that we talk about, is how to get students not just to proficiency, but also to create opportunities for students who are ready to move beyond. And so that is also really exciting to see that. That's really one of the first times that we've had data at that significant a percentage in that advanced category. And we're hoping to build on that and to keep going. And on the math side, for K to 1, 90% of students, as you saw, those bars were so high, were making growth, and 29% are making aggressive growth, which is that more than a year's grade level progress. And for A math, 59% of students were making typical or aggressive growth. So just some real highlights there of some significant gap closing work being done. And I think for us, as I mentioned already, just the small student cohorts, you can have a lot of variability in your data. So again, we're looking for significant differences in percentages, not just a couple points when we're analyzing the information. And we're doing better and better all the time at foundational skill performance and really getting those basic skills solid and helping students. With those, we're still continuing to work on what's next when you start integrating things together, mixing up the skill sets that you're using in a single problem or activity, having to do it with automaticity and speed and fluency, getting into the higher level comprehension, some word analysis. Like, those are the pieces that we're continuing to work on. And just a check-in in terms of toward our goals. On average, across all of the measures, for winter, 81.7% of our students were making modest to aggressive growth, which is shows growth for us also, that we're continuing to move the number of kids that are moving.
So, could I have a quick question?
Yep.
So you're doing comparisons from fall to winter, but do you ever do comparisons and follow say, kids through, do a year-to-year
Like a
analysis?
cohort
Correct.
analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. We're doing that. The data system that we started using this year, Open Architect, that we've been working on training our teachers on, and then our principals and EST team members have had access on to since last summer, not only does this, but does it with really nice visual graphs, and lets the schools be able to access the data and see it, and see those trends.
To see that they're maintaining?
Yeah,
Okay,
for both cohorts and single-year performance,
Great.
so they can look at it both ways.
perfect.
Yep. Yep. And so the next slide just outlines just sort of our next steps based on our analysis, and based on the data that we're seeing in the forward progress. We're going to keep working on what we've been working on. So a lot of work on our MTSS system, as you've been hearing about, continuing to focus on the early reading in alignment with Read Vermont Act 139, continuing to focus on math and the math block model at the elementary in particular this year with the full SU Bridges implementation. There's a lot of work we're doing to try and support and strengthen that approach, as well as looking at secondary math and pushing for alignment and acceleration opportunities throughout those grades. And we've been working on the scope and sequence work and common formative assessments with our teachers and getting grade level teams. At the March in service, we had them, all the grade level content area teams meet together, and they've been working on common formative assessments, so we had them make some commitments to what assessments they're going to administer in the fall for the first 3 months of the school year, that they're going to all administer common assessments and then bring back their data to share with each other, and talk about how it's going in their classrooms, and as they're teaching those units, what are they seeing in one classroom to the next, and what are they learning from that assessment data in between our big screener periods. So trying to break those out and give them more timely data that is the same across our schools, which I know is a goal we've been working on for multiple years now, to try and line that up. And yeah, so exciting work happening there. So that is FastBridge. Questions, comments? Anything else you want me to highlight within that? I know you guys have seen a lot of these reports over the years.
I think it's great that the teachers have that time to work together and share what they're doing. So I think that the system we have in place here with sharing is really beneficial, because the students are doing better. And it also builds teachers' confidence and, you know.
Absolutely. And for,
Their
for a
investment.
significant number of our schools, your first grade teacher might be the only first grade teacher in the building.
Yeah.
And so that SU collaboration gives them colleagues who are teaching the same grade level that they can partner with and brainstorm and collaborate, and, breaks down that isolation and make sure that they have, a quick phone a friend too, and someone that they can start to build curriculum and resources and things together with.
A mentor.
Yeah. Or colleague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions on FastBridge? Do we have anything on VTCAP tonight? Okay.
So finally, again, it feels very strange to be sharing like year-old data with you. And we're taking next year's VTCAP right now. So literally a whole year after the kids took this test that you're about to see data on, I can share it with you because it's no longer embargoed. And we've been looking at this all year long, and your principals, your schools, your teams, your teachers, we've had access to this data on the internal. It's just we're not able to release it to the public until the state allows us to. So, do you have that one too, Chris? I also chatted it to you. Is it going in now?
Okay, got it, okay, thank you.
So this was our third year with the VTCAP assessment, and for those of you who've been here, you'll remember that the first year we got access to information about it like a few weeks before we gave the assessment for the first time. So it's really our second year of understanding what the assessment was going to look like and being able to do any kind of preparation work with students. It is a test that's designed to measure student proficiency on Common Core standards or Next Generation Science standards, which are our curriculum standards, in the areas of ELA, math, and science. And for ELA and math, it's grades 3 through 9, and for science, it's administered in grades 5, 8, and 11. And it is, again, given just that once a year in the spring. And VTCAP results are released by the Agency of Education using the annual snapshot tool, which I have linked in this presentation that you'll get to. But that's a publicly available website that you are able to go on and use as a community member, board member, member of the public, parent, and you can go on to the snapshot and you can search by school, or you can search by the school district. Either way, you can look at the data at both levels. And all of the categories under which schools are measured for the state of Vermont's accountability plan, which is tied to that Every Student Succeeds federal accountability requirements. All of those measurements are in the annual snapshot. And they use a series of arrows, basically, is their way to try to help people visualize the data. Some of them are less helpful than others because they may, again, because of our cohort size and other factors, like if you go from a 18% to a 17%, the arrow will point down. But for us, that could just mean that one student moved and it's not actually a statistically significant variance. So depending on the measure, some of those are very, very finite when you look at them. But some of them are significant, and you'll see the data here. You can see the percentages and the changes really cleanly, I think, on this slide, and tell me if they're not, because I'll try and do it another way. But this is sort of like data clean, what I would call clean data, where you're just looking at kind of numbers. And when you go on the annual snapshot, they try to provide you with like visual analysis of those numbers. And you can dig really deep into the snapshot tool. It's like a click, click, click kind of layered assessment. So you start at like the school level, and then you can go to the content level, and you can go to the grade level, and you can get into the individual measures in it. And that's a nice way to have a little deeper dive into some of the information than just looking at a flat data chart. But it's also, the tool itself is a little bit clunky, and I know there's been a lot of conversation at the state level of how to share the data with the public in a way that helps people understand the information and doesn't just confuse people more, and an acknowledgement that the snapshot tool kind of does some of one and some of the other, and that we have some work as a state to do in helping people to use that tool as a piece that helps them really get into the data in an accessible way. We think we've done a really good job of making it clear and simple on this presentation. And so that's what you'll see on the charts and the information that I've taken. You'll see two different styles of visuals in this presentation. One style is directly out of the state reporting system, called ADAM is the name of the system. And that gives us our test information in a raw form directly from the Agency of Education. And some of the other visuals are from the Open Architect data platform that we have that help us to visualize that data and summarize it and look at patterns and trends in a more interactive way. So you'll see both kinds of visuals in this slide deck. Thank you, Chris. I just included some information on scaled scores and kind of how they're derived and what the scale score ranges are for this year. They tend to stay relatively stable, the scaled scores. They don't change super dramatically, but they might adjust a couple points here or there in a given category based on the test itself and the student performance. And there are 4 performance descriptors for VTCAP, so level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And similar to our standards-based report cards, like level 3 is like proficient in grade level standards, if you think about it that way. And so level 1 would be that emerging understanding. Level 2 is like a partial understanding. Level 3 would be like proficient in grade level standards. And then level 4 would be significantly above, grade level standards in an advanced way. And so all of these scores, you'll see like the 1, 2, when you see a 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what that means. And I broke it down for ELA math and science for you in the slides. Individual student reports are provided for families, and we are allowed to actually send those home to families in the fall because it's only one student's data at a time, so they don't feel like it's publicly sharing the state data at that time, and they want families to know where their kids are at, which we really appreciate that they're willing to allow us to do that. So there's a sample linked into your slide deck also of an individual student report and some additional sample student reports so one of them has like a guide for families that helps them to interpret the report and tells them like what each score area means and what it's measuring, and then and it's broken down by content area, whatever tests the student took. They get those reports on each year, and usually our teachers. Some schools will send them home to families ahead of time, and others will share them at the fall family conference so that they have a chance to explain them to families or go over them with them and make sure that families understand what the report is showing and what it means for their student when they come in. So the reporting categories on slide 11, they align with the Common Core standards or the Next Generation Science standards. And so you can see this sort of like major categories that we get data back in, and those are aligned to strands within the standards that we're teaching. So we know when we look at literary text as a category report, we know what standards are associated with that, and the state provides guides that are available for schools and teams to look at and teachers to look at that show them the blueprint of the assessment and also which standards are being assessed in each section of the test in each of those categories. So for ELA, it's the literary text, informational text, writing analysis, and language conventions. And for science, we have the physical science, life sciences, and earth and space sciences. And then just because none of the content areas can be the same, in math it's a little bit more complicated, and the categories that they report in are also aligned with the standards, but change a little bit from year to year and grade to grade. As the kids develop, they start to access new areas of standards that weren't available to them before, which makes good sense to us because when they're in grades 3 to 5, they're sort of focusing on like the foundational skills that they're going to need for all of the advanced math courses that they're going to take after that. And so the standards that they're focused on are a little bit different in the elementary levels. And then as they move through the grades, the areas of focus also get more complex. So now the good stuff. When we get to slide 13, you start to see our test data. So for our ELA, this is GRCSU overall. For a year ago's data, we had 46% of our students at level 3 or 4 with an average scale score of 1736. And that was an increase for us, 5% more students scoring proficient and 18 points up overall average on our scaled score in ELA. And that bar chart on the right-hand side shows you student performance over the last 3 years that we've been taking VTCAP. And the dark blue and light blue are levels 3 and 4, which is proficient or advanced. The gray is level 2, which is making some progress, beginning progress, approaching And the red is just very beginning, basic skill in those standard areas. And so you can see an upward trend over the last 3 years, which is the result of all the hard work and effort that the teachers and staff have been putting in to support literacy development for students. And then the next slide, 14, this is a breakout by grade level. And so it shows the same information in a chart format by grade level. So the white column is the average scaled score for that grade level. And then you have level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So you can see for ELA broken out again by grade level how students are performing last year. And then slide 15 is the same results for math. And so for us, we had 34% of students overall were at the level 3 or 4, proficient or advanced, which was an increase of 2% for us from the previous year. And our average scale score was 1706, which is 9 points up from the previous year. And then the bar chart on the right shows progress over time. And an interesting thing that you see in this chart is the red is getting smaller as you go. And I know a lot of times we're looking at that upward angle, but that is also a significant indicator there as well, that the number of students who are struggling the most is getting smaller every year, and the top blue is getting larger. So again, some promising trends in that data as well. And slide 16 gives you the grade level breakout again for math for every grade level and proficiency area. And then slide 17 is our science results. And so last year, 32% of our students were at level 3 or 4 in science. That was actually a decrease for us from the previous year. It went down 8%. And the average scale score also correspondingly dropped by 5 points. And, this is an area we've known we needed to work on. Obviously, we prioritize literacy and math first, but we have been working with the science teachers this year. If you remember our curriculum review cycle and the content areas that we were going to take each year one after another, this year is the start of science. And so the same effort that we've been putting into literacy and math over the last couple years, now we're shifting into a new area. We're going to keep working on those, don't get me wrong. There's no rest at all for the weary there. But we're adding to science now as well. And we just had a really exciting meeting. There was a team of elementary teachers who worked on the elementary science sequence, and they have been they've figured out common formative assessments for science, along with some resources that they can share with each other around that for the whole school year for next year. They just did that at the March in-service day and spent a whole session just focused on that work and trying to identify some clear next steps for the elementary group. And as we know, if we build a really strong foundation when they're younger, we're going to see that impact over time too. And slide 18 breaks that out. Again, there's only 3 grade levels for science because it's only administered in 3 grade levels. So we don't have every year to track that growth. We have just kind of like a dipstick every couple of years, grade 5, grade 8, and grade 11 again, to track our progress. And the notable trends and analysis for us, our students demonstrated increases in 14 out of 17 testing categories from the spring of 24 to the spring of 25. So in all the grade levels, all the tests, there's 17 total. And our students had increases in 14 out of those 17 categories, which was 2 more categories than last year, because last year we had increases in 12 out of 17. So we were excited to see that continued growth. And our scores as you would probably expect, are pretty consistent for our region and pretty consistent for the state. We're not out of line with the performance across the region in our area. We have very comparable scores to those. Essay writing is also another area that came out in our data within the ELA test. You can see the writing assessment. And that is, we know that that's an area of focus for us too. And so within our literacy work, we've been talking about that, and we will be, we've been working with our admin team on some plans for some additional writing professional development for next year, and supporting our teachers in teaching writing, which is also a fairly high leverage skill in all content areas. Science we talked about. And I think you've heard Chris and I say too that, you know, the superintendents and the curriculum directors have spoken quite frequently with the Agency of Education, as the Secretary of Education has been working on the new strategic plan for the agency, and has been working with the field on the Listen and Learn tour and all the other conversations that we've had with the agency, that the level of information that we get from the state test is rather limited in comparison to other states. In some states, like Massachusetts, where I used to teach, for example, when the state test is released, they also release sample items from the test. So say if there are 34 questions on the test, you might get access to 28 to 30 of them, that you can actually see the question, see the answer choices, and then look at your students' responses and how they actually answered that question. And you can also see their writing samples and can see all of the information from the state test. We don't get information like that with this test in Vermont. We don't have that level of access. And it would be very helpful if we did. It would really help us to refine our curriculum and to refine our own assessment tools in our efforts. So, excuse me, it is something that we continue to advocate for, and that the superintendents and curriculum groups across the state continue to advocate for. And the Agency of Education definitely understands what we're asking for and why we want it, and is really supportive of trying to provide that to us at some point in the future when they're able, because they also believe that that would be valuable and would be the a really key high leverage kind of piece of information that we could use to take these test scores and make the work come to life in a more aligned way.
Do you understand the barriers to why they won't share that information?
I do not. I believe that it is just the existing contract and assessment that they have put in place in the state at this time. You know, we used to have SBAC, and we now have switched to this new vendor. So I'm just assuming that they got what they asked for right now, but that perhaps that was not part of what they had asked for.
Okay.
But no details more beyond.
Lisa, how many years have we been using this one?
This is the third year, and the first year, again, if you remember, we got it like right as we were testing. I think somebody's popping on there too. I can't.
Well, maybe this year will go more smoothly than before even.
No? Okay.
It'll be the fourth year, so.
Yes. So, and I really, just from hearing from our schools, you know, we've been doing a lot of professional development over the last few years to make sure that our principals and our teachers understand the assessment and understand how it's designed and what resources are available to help them look at the assessment in comparison to their classroom-based assessments, and what's being asked of students on this versus what's being asked of students in their classroom. And both our principals at the school level and our team at the SU level have run a lot of different workshops and trainings and put together a lot of resources for teachers to help support that for them. And what we are seeing more and more is teachers are deepening their own familiarity with this assessment. And they're really looking at the standard and how is VTCAP assessing the standard, and how are the curriculum-based materials or common formative assessments that they've been using assessing the standard, and are those assessments aligned? So are they asking for the same level of rigor, the same level of complexity? One example that I offer regularly to people is in third grade, for example, when students take VTCAP for the first time, they might be asked to read a nonfiction article that outlines information on some topic. And then they also might be asked to look at a map or a timeline or a diagram with other information on that same topic. And they're asked to use information from both those sources simultaneously to answer questions and to make inferences or generalizations about the information that they've read from two different sources. You know, that's a fairly complex task for a 9-year-old to do independently. And so we also need to be creating opportunities for them to do that in class, where you're not only reading one piece of text, but you're reading a piece of text with other types of sources and information and making sense of those together to help you have a broader understanding of a topic that you can then respond and reflect on more general knowledge instead of very specific recall questions. And so those are the kinds of things that, as our teachers see that in the test and reflect on how they're assessing students, they're able to start making shifts to what's happening on a day-to-day basis that are doing things that are not teaching to the test, but truly looking at the rigor of the standard and what is that standard asking, and are they really getting at that in what the task that they're asking students to do. So yeah, a lot of professional learning for us in the last few years. And they continue to roll out more resources every year, similar to SBAC. For those of you who've been around, it tends to happen when we have a new assessment system that the resources that are available for teachers will become richer over time. And so this year, for example, they had writing rubrics included with the practice test resources for the first time. And those had never been available until now. And so we can actually see for the first time how they are scoring writing, our students' writing on the practice tests. And before that, we just had to guess based on our own knowledge of how to assess writing. So just, yeah, things like that just help teachers to really understand and reflect on the standards and the rigor of their lessons.
Yeah, with all the testing, wouldn't you say that, I mean, you make such a good point with the Vermont CAP, how do you?
I call it VTCAP.
VTCAP.
Everybody pronounces it kind of differently.
Yeah, it really looks at the curriculum. Maybe I'm putting too much weight on a test, but it's to let us know, are we teaching concepts that students should be able to understand and perform at? And, excuse me, I must be catching.
I'm sorry. That's my side of the table.
No, you
apologize.
No, it's that time of year. But the other thing is with the FastBridge, it's more of seeing what the student can do. So,
yes,
you know, this one, both are important, but I know there's a lot of testing. And then just the testing that teachers do in the classroom, because as a teacher, you'd say, am I getting my point across to my students? So testing is important, but, you know, we want to weigh it and not.
It's interesting that you say teaching to a standard, because
Yeah.
that's how the military teaches, is to a standard.
Oh.
And then assess where soldiers are versus that standard.
Yeah, there's teachers everywhere,
Yeah.
really,
Yep.
in every field.
I did talk about some of those resources on another slide here, but we've talked about those a lot, and you have a lot of the other things tonight too. But what questions do you have? What else can I tell you?
Yeah, any questions? I mean, could we get these in the drive at some point?
I dropped them in already.
Oh, okay.
They're in the drive.
Yeah, I'm sorry those weren't in there
That's
at the time.
okay.
I thought that was done already.
It's all good. No, I think this is great, and I'm glad that we can start seeing like 3-year data, because, you know, they've changed the assessment again, and this is also what they use for, like, you know, the statewide education report as well, and I think this is way formatted better than what you see on the snapshot. I always find it hard to navigate. And of course, it's heavily suppressed for Well Springs, at
Yes.
least.
Yeah.
But,
I should have said that also, that when you go on the annual snapshot tool, any cohort that has 11 or fewer students, the data is not publicly available, just like when we present at board meetings. But if you're looking for data for a small school, that means that when you go on the snapshot tool, most of the things that you click are going to be blank, which can be really confusing for community members. And folks who are trying to go get information, they're not going to get it there. And we try to give as much as we possibly can at our board meetings, and whatever we can share publicly, we try to do, so that communities are able to access that data in a, what we think is more digestible format. But it is a tool that is available also, and it reports on a lot of categories. For the high schools, it also reports on things like college and career readiness, and some of the other, like dual enrollment and things that are specific to high schools. Again, I would just caution anyone going on there to really read enough to understand what is represented by the number in the snapshot, because in many cases it might be a single data point that is giving it a value within that system, which is not always an accurate picture of everything. Graduation rates, I think, are a great example in there. Like, it's 4 and 6 year graduation rates, but they only take data from one source to make that report. And so if your school is aware of students who have successfully completed their graduation requirements within 4 years or 6 years in other ways besides that one data source, those don't get calculated into that metric on the annual snapshot. And it's how it's designed, and it's how it was set up with the state accountability plan and the federal accountability plan. But it doesn't really always give the full picture in every category. So you really have to pay attention to what data is making up this ranking, and is that all the data that we have available to us?
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong on my understanding, is that, isn't there like the suppression, like 11 students or something like that, less than 11 students? So like if you had a class that had like, let's say 15 students, but then, maybe half of them are on an IEP, and then obviously that changes it. So then basically, that I can't even show you that data because, I don't know, I'm just like, it really kind of skews things in terms of looking at, and I know we typically look at like, school or district-wide data, but it's open to the public.
Yes.
So obviously, people are going to look individually, and then they're not going to see anything, but I don't know, I just think that's important to point out.
And I would just encourage anybody who really wants to understand to try to come to the board meetings where the principals are presenting the data, because that's going to be the most detailed, or to watch the video of it, because that's going to be the most detailed data presentation that you can get. And always we're willing to answer questions if community members have them about how to access this, or they go on and they try and find something and it doesn't make sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And so there's no questions? Any other questions on the?
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to personnel. We have informational. Any questions related to personnel, contract recommendations, retirements?
We do have one license that we added that needs approval, professional staff.
Yeah, I added that to the consent agenda.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you
So,
filled
yeah,
this
we-
out. Okay, thank you.
Finance, we have the monthly reports in the packet. Any questions on the monthly reports? Great. And then on old business, at the last meeting, requested to have a communication committee discussion. Probably something we should have done at reorganization, but we'll open it up for discussion. As I said at our last meeting, that I thought it would remain status quo unless the board wants to change the committee, discuss it? Anyone from the committee want to talk about it?
Let's see. I've been enjoying being on the committee. I feel like it's been a way to get together and share how you're communicating with your residents and your townspeople, because that's one of our goals. That's our number one goal, is to communicate with the GRCSU community. And this monthly message was working well in one of our towns. So when I think about how it's shared with the whole, it represents the whole GRCSU, it really unifies the GRCSU, and the information that goes out comes right from the GRCSU website. So I just think people have been able to get it right in there. It comes right to the person, so they don't have to search for it. I'd be glad to hear any questions, of course.
Do we have any metrics on how much it's being used?
There was something that Amanda shared at one of our meetings, that there's a click rate, 67% of the
Of how many people?
of the people. Right now, 117 subscribers. We're shooting for 500, but it's still
Does it
free.
break down by towns?
It
Or at
it
least-
does.
At least districts?
Yeah, I don't
Could you-
see that. If somebody, I don't have
Could
that.
the committee provide that information?
Yeah, I don't think it does it. I just think it has emails. So unless someone provides their information.
There we go.
Yeah, Amanda, do you have any information on the analytics for MailChimp?
Hi, yes, I don't have it in front of me right now. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that question tonight. In the materials that were provided last month from the committee, February from the committee, there was a breakdown. We don't know everybody by town. There is a line for them to provide their town, but everyone that had provided, I have broken down, and we do have subscribers from all of our communities.
What is the, you don't know the percentage?
Not off the top of my head, but it was provided in the February materials. If you go
I'll go back
back in
and
that
look.
folder. And I could also get that for you next month, if that's something you'd like us to come back with. I'm not prepared with it tonight.
Okay, how does the committee handle the differences between the districts? Our districts aren't all the same. For instance, some of our districts have school choice and the other district doesn't. How do we support that?
I can chime in. Eric, I'll chime in really quick on that.
Perfect.
This is literally materials that are found on each individual website. Just a one-stop shop to make it easier for community members and stakeholders to be able to get the information. So we're not creating any message.
Okay.
We're simply using it as a vehicle to get information to people. Instead of them getting 6 emails, or 1 from DSU and 3 from other districts and things like that. This is just more of a one-stop shop opportunity. So, and that was the premise, I believe, of this committee. I think that was our intent, is to kind of keep it that way, just try to have the easiest digestible way to get information out to the community.
Okay.
Yeah, what's interesting is, like, we have our board meeting, and we work very diligently at our board meetings. But it's hard to know if anybody is really listening out there, except for the people I see. And we have PEG TV that shares it. But this comes right to the people, so and it has links to PEG TV, it has links. I wish we could show. You do happen to have, to share like what it looks like, because it just came out today. Do you have it in your email?
I do have it.
That would be so nice.
I mean, it should go to
Everybody who signed up, and everybody should have signed up in here.
Oh, I know.
And I
You
think
just have to
that
look at it.
That
Yeah.
was requested at a previous meeting that all board members were just included in on.
Oh, okay.
Right, Amanda?
I think it's going to all of the board members unless, possibly after reorganization, the people that joined
Oh, yeah.
after reorganization, but I can double check that as well. I'm pretty sure it's going to all of the GRCSU board members. I'm not sure about all of the local board members are not included.
And what's
We
nice.
can add all of the local board members if that's something you'd like to
That would be a good
have
idea.
us do.
Yeah, we want to include the new people. And each school, because it's nice when you look at what, I think it's Shannon Moriarty that does the websites for each school. She does a terrific job, and they're all similar but different because it's a different community, and there's pictures of, what's nice, a picture says 1,000 words, pictures of what's happening in schools. So.
Amanda?
I also just wanted to add, we did get some community feedback. I know that there was a parent of Well Springs that spoke and said that they kind of enjoyed everything in one place because they have high schoolers in other schools within our district, and then also like their elementary school students. So they enjoyed them being combined. And then I also, at the annual meeting, the Core Valley annual meeting, there was somebody that spoke and, thanked us for having everything in one place, and they were able to access the meeting through those meeting links. So we're definitely reaching people, and I think people are enjoying it. I think it's just, it takes time, like anything else. But I think we're getting there.
And there were a lot of communications sent out around the budget and the annual meetings, and I wish there was a way to tell if that helped with budgeting, budgets passing, but go ahead.
I've said it before, but I look at the margin of our budget passing since we started being diligent about communicating. And I can't say for sure that's a result, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's not across the whole, not every district had a good turnout this year. Let's
Well,
just say that.
we had this, we've had this going, how many years, Amanda? Since we started
You
sending out
have.
messages?
Yeah.
Oh, for Well Springs?
Yeah.
This is our third year.
So over that time span I'm talking about, I'm glad Greater Rutland is doing it, definitely. So,
Right, and I think too, like, even that we have 117, right, like, that's a lot, and it's not a lot because it's only 117, but it's a lot as far as, we're already getting that engagement, and we haven't put our faces. We haven't really gone out and spoke to a lot of people. We've gotten that from our websites, from sharing with our admin, and, very little outside of board meeting effort. So I think if we, continue to try, we continue to reach people in, face-to-face stuff, especially, there's also an option that we can share this message via a link. So we could ask the admin to just include in their existing monthly messages a link to ours, or weekly messaging, I'm sorry, a link to our messaging, and then people, even if they choose not to sign up, they're still receiving, and then within that, there's a link for them to subscribe. So I think we're getting there, but again, like you said, George, like we're on year 3, so this isn't something that happens overnight or even within 3 months. I think that we're making the progress and doing pretty well.
Are you emailing it to the board members at GRCSU?
I don't have that open in front of me, so I don't want to misspeak. I
So
thought
just-
every
I'm not
GRCSU
seeing it.
board member was getting it, but not the local board members. So I will double check.
Yeah, I think
that
you had
for
to sign up for it.
I'm sorry?
We had to sign up for it.
Oh, are you talking about Wells Springs or GRCSU now? I'm sorry.
GRSU.
Yeah, so after the last meeting, I think that we added 2 people, because it was requested. So I think every GRCSU member is getting it now, but not every local board member.
Okay.
I know I get it, I have 4 different emails, and there's one email that it comes to, it's the GRCSU emails where I get mine.
You can always just sign up all board members, and if they don't want it, they can just unsubscribe, right?
That's what she's saying they did.
Well, the GRCSU, but I think it was
Well, that's what she
being
was saying.
suggested.
They
for-
added 2 more people who were the only ones who weren't
Yeah, but
already subscribed.
have it go to
Get it.
all board members in the SU, not just SU board members.
Yeah, I'm looking.
I mean, I guess that's something the committee can discuss.
So it just came today.
Yeah, when you sign up, you can have it sent it to any, your Greater Rutland email or your personal email,
Yeah.
which is where I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion about the communication committee? Possible, I don't know, directives, tasks?
This kind of links to it, but I did listen to the Vermont School Board Association webinar, and it was about communication, and it was so interesting. This man, Chris Horan, I think is his name, who works with them on communications, led a whole talk about the importance of communicating to the constituents and using different forms of communication, be it media, newspapers, or emails. It said getting emails to people is important, and also talking to people in person. And it was very interesting. So when I was listening to that, I'm like, wow, we do a few different things. Also, the woman in charge of Front Porch Forum was there, and I think some town in our district uses that well. We did before, and I think we could again, but just sharing what's official information, it has to be official information from our district, is what we share.
Yeah, just public stuff. That's
Yeah, public stuff.
pretty much that's on the SU website.
Yeah.
Colin?
Just wanted to publicly thank Amanda for all the work she's put into this. I know 117 people doesn't sound like a lot, but I would echo George that, some people are looking at it. We all passed. That was a good sign this year. It doesn't cost us any money. It's just hours to get the information out. I think keep building the momentum of what we're doing. My personal opinion is that every board member should be subscribed. I honestly think every employee with GRCSU email should get it automatically. Teachers are a big connection point to our parents. Obviously, we're trying to get out in the community. If parents have questions, what's the board doing, what's going on, what's the resource, if they have that a little bit more accessible, they could just forward that on, or a QR code. So I think, every employee should have this coming to them, whether they read it or not, who knows. But again, Amanda's done a lot of this work, so I think there's no harm in keeping it going. It's just going to continue to snowball, and it may take several years, but this is how the generational ahead of us, this is how they get their information. Everything's handheld. We need to be having it distributed to them in an easiest way as possible.
I know on our school, Rutland Town School website has the code, so it has to be accessible though, so people, if they aren't getting it, they need to be able to receive it. I don't see it on the GRCSU website, but it could be buried here somewhere. It's got to be accessible so people could sign up. Well, I'm going to find it so I can send it to you.
Also, I don't
Contact
think Tim's missed a meeting since I volunteered him for this committee when he wasn't there, so make sure.
There's no chance I would ever miss one of those.
No. Hear from.
All right. Okay, great. There's still, I think the intention was to have members from all districts on this committee too, so there's still room for Corey Valley member. So, that might be something for you guys to consider, and, I think that, and Amanda, has, brought this forward before at previous meetings in regards to just making sure that, all districts in the SU are represented on there in terms of communication methods and what works in each community. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to new business. We have superintendent evaluation. So in the folder, there is another folder that has the components for the evaluation process. It's pretty much the same as the same process we did last year. There is a timeline for the work and how the evaluation process is clarified. And so what we want to do is we need to approve the process, but post-evaluation last year, we did have a board discussion on potentially changing or what went well, what didn't work well. And one of the things that came up was the local board survey. So if you look at that document, this is intended to be similar to the rubric that is used for the evaluation process. Last year there were just questions, kind of in some way yes and no questions. The intention behind this is to make this formative, but it's like a survey for all members, all school board members within the SU. And so there's 3 of them for each category that's in the evaluation rubric, and it's intended to be ranked 1 through 4, just like everything else. So that's where we had left off with the executive committee was doing a lot of the work on it. We weren't able to meet to finish this, so it's kind of come to the board to wrap up and approve tonight because next month is when, according to the timeline, the local evaluation goes out, and it goes out the same way as it did last year in like a Google Doc form or Google form, and it's emailed to all the board members, and then all that information is coalesced and brought to the GRCSU board in June.
Well, the executive board hasn't worked on it since, last year when we first rolled it out? We haven't worked on it in 2025. I don't remember working on it.
Yeah, we met in the fall, and then our last meeting, it was me and Tim, so we didn't really make any decision on it. So, and then, there's just too many conflicts, like, as you know, we couldn't meet before this meeting. So,
Okay.
So the other pieces to the evaluation rubric and the administrative component, those are all the same. Those haven't changed from last year, other than the superintendent's goals have been updated to the goals that were approved back in September, I believe it was. So any questions? I think that, I think right now, one of the most important pieces to this evaluation process is, and again, it's really up to the board to decide if you want to change it, but my thought is that if we weren't going to change it, we're going to include having the local board survey component added, still keep this, right? And just change some of those questions, basically. It would look more like a rubric where instead of just a series of questions, like some of the questions, if you don't remember, were like, do you feel, do you think, those type of questions, and some of the responses, it wasn't helpful. Did everyone have a chance to look all this over?
It wasn't put in until like this afternoon.
Oh, no, it was in there. I made sure it was in there last Friday.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I looked yesterday and I didn't see it.
It's in,
I have it now.
yeah,
I don't remember seeing it in the drive.
April 3rd.
Okay. My bad. Guess I missed it.
Yeah, and I had asked Christine to put it in like a separate folder, so all of these are in a separate folder. Easy to find.
If you're in the general folder, you have to click on the little arrow to get it to open. Otherwise, you see one thing.
Yeah, it's another folder. So does everyone have access to it now? Any thoughts? I'm looking at the local board survey component. And again, these were just kind of compiled from each of those rubrics, sections of those rubrics. And the intent is just to, gauge some of the effectiveness of key areas in each of those sections, and just for feedback. So all this can be edited, any suggestions, change, it's just kind of like a starting point.
So then you would want to make all these categories into a rubric like that, with different scores, 1 through 4?
Yeah, it would,
Okay, so then like the second bullet point on the first section isn't, you couldn't simply score that because of the second half of that sentence is, and how is that reflected back to the board? That's like the first part you can score, but the second part, I don't know how you score.
which one are you looking at, policy?
The second, this is under the first section, board and superintendent relationships, the second bullet point.
Okay. Okay.
Because you're asking a question that it isn't a 1 through 4 answer.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you can
And I'm not
strike out the whole question, we can amend it, like,
I think the first part might be okay. But the second part doesn't
okay.
really make sense in terms of, as I said, a 1 through 4 answer.
No, that's good, that's fine. I think what needs to be there needs to make sense for everyone.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I see what you're saying. So yeah, we could probably just take out that whole second part.
Yep. I think it's still a valid point, it's just, you're asking for some sort of, I don't know, answer. That is.
Yeah. And when this was kind of like initially, we started working on this, back in 2024. it wasn't supposed, to, you know, we didn't want to have like a whole bunch of questions and make us this survey into this big, long, you know. So, you know, 2 to 3, you know, I guess you could call them, measures for each section would.
Okay, so under business and finance, again, the second bullet point, I'm not sure that one is very clear. Financial information is communicated to the board, comma, and how it supports decision-making.
Yep.
I'm not sure, and how it supports decision-making is very clear.
Yep, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And if you want to keep it, like I think you were just saying, clear and simple, then maybe only the beginning of that sentence is the evaluation.
Okay. I wonder if there's more of those.
Well, I'm reading through them. And the one right after it, at least, I think you can just take out the word do. It says systems are in place for facilities, planning, and maintenance, and how they align with district priorities. You don't want to say how do they align, because you're making it a question again. Is there a reason we don't have punctuation on any of these? Like end of punctuation?
It's a working document.
Okay. Seems like a text message.
I can't remember when I did this. Like, it was a long time ago, and but I think the idea, you know, behind it is just to change it from the format it was last year, improve it from what it was last year, you know.
But you wanted to do that tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, any changes the board wants, I mean, again, this survey is basically coming from the board and going to, you know, all board members in the SU for feedback, so.
Under operational management and leadership, the first bullet point, should that say systems for all those things are in place? I feel like there's, yeah, systems are in place for internal communication, personal management, and supervision, ensuring consistency and fairness, because otherwise it's just systems for.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the superintendent has systems in place for. And on the instructional leadership, the second bullet point, that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more too. Equity and student achievement probably is prioritized and reflected in district decisions, not just prioritized. Need a verb in there. That's good.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Changes. Anyone else?
Let's go with it.
Okay.
So with these changes as suggested, and we're sending this out to the members, are we asking them to answer yes or no on these points?
It would be,
One.
just
1 through 4.
1 through 4.
Okay, then what defines 1 through 4?
The other sheets in the,
Well, these have descriptors in them.
Yep. It's going to go out in a Google form doc like last year. Do you remember it from last year? So it had the same, meeting approaching, it still had the same 1 through 4.
Okay.
Code, we had a code.
Yeah.
Eric, that's a question. So this is going to replace the indicators from last year, or? I just, my concern is that we're introducing, it seems like new indicators or questions a month before an evaluation.
I think we should just go with what we have.
That's my only concern is, but it's just that, whether or not I've had the opportunity to really understand or work towards these new, so if there's a question that I've not had an opportunity to fully understand, I think, so I just want to understand, like, is this something completely new or different?
It's going to seem different.
Well, I just want to make sure that if it's aligned to the same indicators, like nothing has changed, we're changing wording, but if we're asking new questions, I just want to make sure that if in a month's time I'm being evaluated, but I have not had an opportunity to really fully understand or work towards these indicators, I just, out of fairness to myself or to others in the process, where do we work off that rubric from last year for this evaluation, then we introduce this new language in the next evaluation cycle, where I'm just asking just on my.
No, I get it. It makes sense. So
These. I am being evaluated based on this.
These come from the rubric.
Okay, I just want to try to understand what this is.
So the same questions? We haven't changed the questions?
So if you look at the evaluation rubric, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rubric itself, let me see if I can pull it up. So the idea behind these was to take some of those sections and, just summarize them into a few of them, like 2 or 3, instead of having the whole rubric. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think it's important too that Chris understands what he's getting graded on here, right? I mean, we're kind of throwing changes at the last moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever good.
No, I get it, but.
And it's hard for me also, it's hard for me to, I know I'm bringing up these points now, but it's really hard for me to make it from Montpelier, Barry, or Berlin to West Rutland by 5 p.m. so that I can participate in the meetings.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so, and this is part of it that,
I would like to put a motion on the floor and not to change it at this last moment.
Not to change what?
Not to change any questions in the rubrics, leave it as it was last year.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, all right, so, all right. My only issue with that is those questions, they weren't really helpful in the evaluation.
I think we need to have it, though, overdue to Chris to take a look at it at least 6 months in advance of when we.
Like I said, I have no problem for feedback, accountability. I'm not trying to say any of that. I think just from my perspective, just if there's going to be a new evaluative piece or tool is being used, that typically is introduced at the beginning of a cycle where I can align my goals, have a better understanding about what we're working towards, as opposed to a month before that tool then goes out. And I think if there were concerns that the board had around the last goal, we've had time to address those concerns. So, like I said, I welcome feedback, I welcome, accountability, but I just want to make sure also that as we're entering a period where we know that in a year, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, with reorganization, that these frameworks and these tools will be used as I'm looking for other positions or looking, so I just want to make sure that it accurately reflects the work that I need to do and performance.
So, I mean, there is a motion on the floor, so can we?
We're discussing it.
Okay.
And if I can finish what I was saying in terms of, we did do like a post-evaluation discussion back in August. And this was one of the pieces to the evaluation that wasn't helpful, right? The SU board. So, I mean, I get it, from your perspective, adding any, like an evaluation tool that, that makes sense. So I would say that if we're not going to change it, my thought is we'll just, maybe eliminate the whole local survey piece until it can be worked on.
But that's not fair to the local board members.
Yeah, well, we also looked at the participation. The participation was like minimal. We had 100% participation from the administrative piece to the evaluation that was sent out to administrators, but the local board piece it wasn't helpful at all. Again, it's a board decision. That's just my thought on it. If the board wants to continue working on this and refine it so that it, and then it also makes sense, not just for the evaluation piece, but for the superintendent. And I don't know if maybe I'm just not, explaining this part too, but I mean, like when you look at the first bullet point, the superintendent ensures all board members receive timely, complete, actionable information. It directly ties to the actual evaluation itself in the first section, in terms of materials and information. So that was kind of the idea behind this. These are intended to be similar to the rubric, but not exactly like the rubric. Eric made a motion to keep the evaluation the same as last year. I've said what I think about, moving forward with the evaluation, whether we want to, any other discussion on this?
Why did you want to change it to, or shorten it? Is that the idea? I'm just,
Shorten,
the rubric? I mean, is that why you had the bullet points instead?
yeah, this is intended, this is the change that the SU board discussed the end of last summer, right? In terms of what worked with the evaluation or not. And this was one of the changes that we were looking at making. And instead of having questions, right, because they were just, questions, instead of having questions, the idea is to take some of the elements from the rubric and turn it into an actual, basically shorter, summarized version of the full rubric. Does that make sense?
But still use the full rubric.
For the SU board evaluation in June. So right now, we're just talking about the local piece.
I'm fine with making changes, I'm just not fine with the timing.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep. Okay. All right, all those in favor? Hold on. Colin?
Just my thoughts are like we deal with testing and changing stuff. Like, I feel like every year we get to this and we want to change the evaluation. I think we should just stick with what we have. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but if we keep changing the metrics, just like we keep changing data points, it's like you never have a nice history of what's going on. So we're never going to find something perfect, but I think it's a moot point to keep changing things up every year. Let's just keep with what we have. My personal opinion.
Well, we have to change it to align with goals. It's just the timing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just following through with what the board decided back in August.
Right, and
I
it's
mean,
just a timing issue, really.
No, it was the local survey piece.
Right.
That was an issue.
So how is that part of the survey? Like, how is it handled as?
What do you mean?
The weight of it?
Yeah.
So,
What weight is given to the local boards versus?
Is it an
the SU
internal
board?
piece?
so that was one of the issues, was that the way it was written was, it was just questions, right? Do you feel, what do you, stuff like that. And the idea was to turn it into something that you could use as like a formative assessment that could be incorporated into the actual assessment and, or evaluation, if that makes sense. So that was the idea behind changing it, right? So when a local board survey goes out, they're looking at something that they can say 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
And then when all of that information is coalesced, and then when the SU board looks at it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the SU board can use that information. So, anyway, that's, I hope that kind of explains it.
But the survey is not based on our existing questions that we're already using as the GRCSU board. Is the local survey different
Yes.
questions?
Yeah.
It's not just a summary.
Yeah, last year there were questions. The idea this year is to make them more in line with the actual rubric.
Right. So,
And.
so it's not changing it, really.
It would be changing it, because they were all questions last year. Lisa?
Well, they're fine questions, but what?
Are you looking at something we didn't have in our packet? Is there something rewritten that I'm missing here?
It's in the drive.
Okay, I don't see it, but all right.
Oh, it's in that folder.
It's in a folder in the drive, which I didn't see till just
The
tonight.
drive, you click on an arrow, and then it'll drop down. But anyway, the sample here that's been sent out, with all these categories that we've edited a little bit, you don't have this in a form that tells the local board what is a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, like this. Or do you?
Yeah.
And I'm missing that.
So last year, the form had that all in it. This is, what you're seeing here is just like examples of what would be on there.
So what does that form look like? Is that in here?
No.
Okay.
No.
Then, to do that, and to have that out to the boards for next month, I think, is not realistic.
Okay.
But it's worth doing for next time.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely worth doing.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. Like I said, is whatever the SU board wants to do. And we'll just, following the evaluation piece,
So is
work
that-
on changing it, improving it.
Is that something that goes back to the executive committee then? or-
No, it'll just come to the SU board.
Okay.
Okay, so Eric made a, Oh, go ahead,
Can I
Tim.
just mention one thing really quick? If we're, it sounds practical to stay the course.
We
on,
won't get this done. No, we won't. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's nobody's fault.
Oh, sorry. So I'm perfectly fine with staying the course on last year's format. I mean, I think Colin made a good point of like trying to get some traction of like the same processes. Just in the scope of what I recall from last year, well, one, there is a comment section, so I guess I would just encourage your fellow board members or, chairs, give some, some insight or expectations of the board members, like, if you don't know if you want to answer yes or no, like, give a little bit of an explanation, so at least there's some validation to the exercise. Otherwise, it's an absolute waste of everyone's time. And two, what I do recall from the previous year's format is that even though it was supposed to be anonymous in some function, the way it was formatted out, it was easy to understand who said what and what they thought and things like that. So I think format-wise is something that we do need to address in some capacity between now and when it makes it to the local boards. And two, just like I said, just to have some meaning to the exercise, I think it should be conveyed that, if you're not quite sure because you don't have an interaction with Chris, but, this is your experience in some way, then I think the comment section should be utilized. And then we can, throw out the outliers or, whatever the case may be. But, so, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Okay.
And why do you have to be anonymous? I thought we talked about that last year.
I don't know. I mean, I thought, if we're not going to be anonymous, might as well just have our name. There shouldn't be a format of like semi-anonymous. It's easily able to be.
I thought everybody's name was on it last year when we got it, so.
No, it was like on like a separate sheet. Something
I don't
like
know.
that. I don't know. Those formats are weird, so. I'm indifferent personally on that topic, but, so, sounds like we're staying the course on the format and everything. But.
Yep. Okay. Well,
I mean, if you don't know where that rating came from, how can you address it? And I just think the finished product, when done, should be reviewed by Chris and Louis also, because it's got business questions on there. Give them a chance to look it over. And then, have this ready for next time.
What did he say?
Just a
Reviewed by
review,
who?
Louis.
Chris and Lewis?
This is not a business manager evaluation.
No,
so
it's
it'd be
just-
just reviewed by me, and if there are issues, everything falls under the superintendent's purview. So if there were an issue, say with budgeting or special education or
Well,
cultural,
just
then that's my
language,
duty.
not to,
I
critique it or
understand.
anything, but.
Yep. Okay. Well,
Did we vote?
no, not yet. But
I was confused.
no, I'm just waiting for everyone to, make sure everyone has a chance to speak onto the matter. All right. So, I mean, you made a motion to keep everything, or keep it as it is from last year.
Yeah.
And that includes, so the survey will go out next month, and then when we meet in June, the evaluation here will take place, so. And then post that, we'll work on modifying all the components of it that need to be done, so. Okay, so all those in favor of maintaining the superintendent evaluation as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to B. So at our last meeting, it was requested to have a budget discussion. I think the idea behind this is to discuss what we want to see for timeline and areas of focus. I don't know, Lisa, I believe you brought this up. Did you want to speak to this at all, or?
I brought that up?
I think
The
so.
timelines?
No, GRCSU budget discussion.
I think it was just around like having it, getting started earlier.
Yeah.
What are the barriers to starting it earlier? Is there any barriers from the state starting our budget?
Yeah,
earlier?
so we had the great idea of 2 years ago to start early. We said, let's start the process early so that's not, we have more time and it's not as much of a rush. And the wall that we ran into was we did all that we could local-wise. We had our budgets all set, and I think we created some unnecessary panic that year because our budgets looked like they were going to have a huge impact on taxes, and then we started the state data started to trickle in. And I know, like in Well Springs, we had all these community forums because we thought we needed to cut the budget and we were gonna cut programs. And once we got the state data, we realized our tax rate wasn't even gonna go up, even though our budget was up. And so we sort of panicked for nothing and decided not to make any cuts that year, even though we thought we needed to.
So really what we need to do is write to our senators and House representatives and tell them we need the numbers sooner. If we
That
wanted our
is,
budget
that is the fact. I mean, you look at our budgets this year, Rutland Town was up less than 1%. I think Corey Valley was up 1.5%. Yet the tax rate impacts were, I mean, enormous. I mean, 22% in Rutland Town. I think it ranged between 7 and 12% in Corey Valley. So the impacts on taxpayers is not coming from our budgets. It's coming from the factors that are outside our control.
Right.
The yield, CLA, even equalized pupils or long-term weighted ADM. And without having those factors in advance, we don't really know what our target or our goal is.
We don't even know where we're gonna be in a year with what they're thinking about.
My comment about the budget at the last meeting was perhaps talking about bringing custodial to the SU and centralizing that, something we had spoken about before.
Yeah.
That was my comment about the budget.
I remember that. Yep.
So that would be an area of focus. Well, I think if we're gonna have this discussion too,
We would need numbers.
well, if we're gonna explore this, we need to provide some direction and criteria for administration to bring back to the board would be my thought. So, and we talked about it a while back, and I think the consideration was like a northern region, facility manager and a southern end or something like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking about discussing again, or?
I'm not sure that we would need to. We seem to function well with one of other things with respect to having it at the central office level. So I'm thinking more that we hear a lot about custodial staff not having enough in buildings, and during the summer months, we've talked about this repeatedly, if we could take all of our custodial staff to a building and do the project and then move to the next building, how much more efficient that would be and actually be completing some significant projects. So I think we probably have a framework to bring it back and discuss it. One, we know how many employees we have within the administrative level for custodial staff, how many custodians we have. We know what those salaries are, and then the question is just looking at that and deciding, like we've done with other things, if districts are willing to bring that to the SU level and try to be more efficient in that.
Okay, that for me. For you.
I would
Make that a
Raise-
new agenda item.
raise a question about travel costs. because the price of gasoline has jumped substantially, and someone working in Wells may not be able to afford to drive to Rutland Town to work on a project. So it's got to be part of the conversation. We're seeing it in our employees now, so.
Gotcha. So this would this, I guess, shift all custodians to, like, there would be SU employees?
That'd be the only way you could do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think that one facilities director would be, it would be a lot to manage 8 schools. I know we have one business manager, one superintendent, but you're talking about, it's not gonna be somebody that's based in an office that's managing it from here. They need to manage them from the buildings. There's a lot of intricacies in buildings, heating systems and plumbing systems and electrical systems. I think 8 schools would be a lot for one person. I think a north and a south probably would be better. I mean, right now we have, I think, what, 5? I mean, if we can go down to 2 and then evaluate, and then eventually we can look at maybe 1 in the future if 2 is, but.
So Louis, I think what we need to do is we need to do a couple scenarios and bring those scenarios to the board for discussion. You know, a scenario about what one would look like with 2, we could do pros and cons and do some cost analysis, just have a better understanding, and then, so the board can have a more informed discussion about how they want to proceed with this and what that may look like. So we'll try to run through some hypothetical scenarios. We really run through all of the, I said, pros and cons of each situation as best, and we'll involve the building admins on the conversation as well, get their feedback as well. So we'll have that for you in May.
Are there potential savings, like, for instance, Wellsprings calls in an outside contractor or specialist to handle something, where maybe within Greater Rutland, we've got that expertise?
So that would be part of the mindset, is if we say have like a certified plumber on staff in one of our buildings, currently that building then has the luxury of saying, like, they don't call an outside plumber, they just run the hardware store, get like a $5 gasket or whatever it may be, and replace it in-house. If we had access to that individual, and instead of calling an outside contractor in one of our buildings, that individual could then shift over to that building for the day, and it would reduce costs. That would be the ultimate goal of this, so we would, that shared expertise among some of our staff members.
We also have the SU vans.
The vehicles.
The vehicles that they could utilize to help with the gas situation.
Correct.
That's an issue.
And whether it's an outside contractor or not, we're paying for the gas, one way or the other.
Right.
It's in his cost, so.
But, and I know that has been a conversation in some of our local boards about some of the contracts we have with some of our service providers, and some of the, as we look at every time we call them, the exorbitant cost that it's causing us to, when they send out 1 or 2 individuals, and then when they always find something else. And so I think we do have expertise currently within our buildings that we might be able to leverage. And that is one of the, it's supposed to be one of the benefits of an SU, is around efficiency and scale, and is working through it. So we'll provide these scenarios as we've done in the past, and then for the board to consider and discuss in May.
Sounds good to me. Anything else in regards to this discussion?
It doesn't affect their union contract.
Well, they would still be a part of the association. It would just be
Your
shifting from a
associate.
local to I mean, we negotiate as an SU. So, you know, teachers, even though a teacher at Wells, Rutland Town, or Corey Valley, they're all being represented by the association. They represent as one entity, so it's not separate. So that's the same with, we have our special educators or SU employees. So they're still part of the association, that would not change.
They're on the support staff agreement.
The
Custodians.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then facility directors are non-union, so.
And we're talking about potentially for FY '28. Correct?
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, we'll move on to general public comment, second round. Anyone online wish to speak at all?
Eric,
quick, and I just wanted to make a comment about the communications committee. It'd be great to have like just a small printout in the beginning of the year, in like the parent take-home package. I mean, we probably fill out, I don't know, 15 pages, so I think like maybe another page of just saying, you know, are you willing to, you know, sign up for the communication for the GRCSU? Amanda's done great work with the Wall Springs. You know, just throw in your email address, maybe a signature, and then you're on your way. So I don't know if we can maybe think about that on a like Wall Springs level and then bring it to the GRCSU, but that would be a time where I would definitely go ahead and fill it out since I'm filling out all the other paperwork for the fall.
Sure.
Good point.
Thank you. Okay, we do have an executive session tonight. I'll take a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing contracts.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Eric. And we'll give PEG TV time to wrap up here, and so we'll move into executive session about 8:25, something like that, yeah. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.